So I should probably caution you going into this. I didn't obtain permission to use any of these images. I am using this strictly for a demonstration for this class. Um, because it was something that I knew that I could use the images for really quickly for this demonstration. I'm not intending to ever publish any of this. I'm so using this strictly for the class. So again, this is kind of one of those do as I say, not as I do sorts of demonstrations. But it's probably to benefit you guys for how you can put your portfolio together. So picking up where we left off, what I'm going to do now is show you how to resize all of your images in Photoshop so that you can more readily use them in InDesign. One of the key things to do, first of all, is to make sure that all of your images are of a size that can be used in the setup of the 8.5 by 11 inch InDesign document. A lot of these images that I have, and I'm going to bring this up really quickly on this file I have off to the side here. I showed you before that I have all of these images in here of Sid Mead's work. Probably many more images than you guys might have for your portfolio, but I purposely put some in here that were really big that I took with my smartphone. So as to show you in this demonstration how you can quickly resize the images themselves so that they will work out much better in your portfolio. So then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do File and New, and we're going to establish a document that is 24 by 24 inches square. And the reason for that is so that some of the larger images that I can bring in will actually fit inside, and some of the many smaller images I'm going to have to resize all of this stuff so that it fits inside of the parameters of the InDesign document. I had this set to grayscale here a moment ago, if you remember when I did the page, and I don't want that. I want to make sure that it's an RGB color, and we're going to go ahead and create that. So now I've got this very large page set up for myself. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to grab all of these images by holding down my Shift key. So I've selected them all. I'm going to move this off to the side here now. I'm going to drag and drop them in, and you'll see them appear one at a time. You can see how they come in all at different sizes. And that's okay, because we want to be able to make them all work for our portfolio. Some of them I may abandon if they're just too darn small. But as you can see, some of them are like big. They're, they cover the whole area. And some of them are really tiny. And you may be confronted with this very same thing when you go to put in your documents into InDesign. And there are like lots and lots of them. I keep clicking and each one of them comes in. You can see them appearing off to the right in the layers palette as smart objects. One of the first things we're going to do after we get them all in here is we're going to go over and we're going to rasterize all of those images so that we can then resize them. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to establish a particular size that can be used in the portfolio that won't be, and here's some of the larger ones that I took with my smartphone out of one of the books of Sid Mead's that I own, so we can see how those get resized. Just a couple small ones yet. And I think I'm done. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rasterize all of these images. This is probably much the same way that you would be going about setting up your portfolio, but then again, it may not be near as many images as this. So I'm going to go to right click on that and do rasterize layers. And you can see they've all moved out of being smart objects now. What we want to do now is we want to shut off nearly all of them. And the reason for that is we're going to establish a size for them to become. So there's my background layer. I'm going to make sure that all of the images that I create are going to first of all fit inside of an 8 by 10 image area, and that'll make it so that it's a lot easier for me to put it into the portfolio pages. I'm going to make it 8 by 10 as a landscape though. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and one at a time take these images and do like edit. This one's going to do edit, transform, and scale. That's this first one down here. You can see that it's, now I'm just going to hold down, I'm not going to hold down anything. I'm just going to let it proportionally get smaller till it fits inside of that window and gives me a little bit of space on either side. And there's an image, and I'm going to make sure it's kind of pretty much centered in there, like so. It's a panorama. Going to shut that one off, go to the next one, and you can see this one's pretty close, but it still needs to be made smaller in order to fit inside of that window. So we're going to do edit and transform and scale. And not going to hold shift or anything, so proportionally allow that to come into size. And there we go. All right. Now, I'm not going to belabor going through all of these, but I'm going to take some of the bigger ones, and I know those were the ones that are as images. Here's one IMG 1919. Now you can see this one's really big. And what I want to do is edit and transform and get that one to fit inside. Make sure I'm on the layer. Edit and transform and scale. And make sure that I can get that one inside of that window up there. And these are the kinds of things that you're going to need to do. Now this one's got some junk around the outside of it that I need to clean away. So I'm going to show you real quick how I could do that. And go in and zoom in on that image and say I don't need all of this other junk that's around the outside of it. First thing I'm going to do is clean most of that away. So I'm going to go out around the outside edges of that, like so. And then I'm going to go select inverse. You'll notice the marching ants are now appearing around the outside borders, and you can't see it off to the right and down below there, but and just around the image itself. So when I hit delete, it's going to preserve the image, but get rid of largely most of the extraneous information that I didn't want to keep. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my rule lines here real quick so that I can figure out exactly how much of this to preserve, because it got a bit of distortion when I took a picture of it with my camera from the book, and I want to reestablish that. So what I'm going to do is zoom in here a little bit more and do edit transform, and this time I'm going to use my warp tool, because the warp tool allows me to more carefully select where I'm going to grab and pull an image from. So you can see I can pull and grab those corners of the image till I can get it kind of lined up with my border tool there that I'm using. This one needs to come down just a little bit. So this is a good way of manipulating things and moving things around when they might not have been as true originally as you would have liked. Keep grabbing my rule line there, and I don't want to. So I've got it pretty well what I want it to be. It's pretty close in on those lines. I'm just going to eliminate all the extraneous information around the outside of it now. So I'm going to go inside of those framed marks from the piece that I recorded from the book. And then I'm going to do select inverse and then hit delete. And as you can see, I've punched away all of the stuff that was outside of that image. And I'm going to hold down my Alt key and zoom out. And that looks pretty good. It fits inside of the 8x10 frame pretty well. I'm going to get rid of my extraneous rule lines here, because I want to keep the rule lines that pertain to that 8x10 that I want to. I'm going to do edit and transform and scale. And I'm probably going to bring that up in size a little bit, left, right, top, bottom, so that it's more in keeping with the 8x10 in there. So that's how you go about cleaning up an image that you may have brought in from, taking a picture with your phone of some sketch or some design that you did, and the edges of it or something are not quite true. So that's how you can do that. As I said, I'm not going to go through here and do every single one, but suffice to say, this is how you would go about doing that. You would go in and grab each image. I'm going to do one more for you for the sake of, here's another one. This one's probably, not that one. We'll do one that's a little bit bigger. You can see on your thing off to the side here how big some of these are. That one's pretty good size. We want to make that one smaller and fit inside that 8 by 10. So what I'm going to do is shut off the last image that I had on so as I can make this one smaller. So right there, I'm going to do edit, transform, and scale, and bring down the size of that so that it fits inside that 8 by 10 document window. Now when I save all of these, what I may do is I may go back and see there's a black border along the edge of this here where it got cropped out of something. I want to get rid of that black edge. So I'm going to go out here around the edges of all of this and do select inverse and hit delete, and that gets rid of that dark edge that was along this side and one over there that came from wherever it got copied from. So anyway, now it has cleaned it up a lot of it. Now, what I probably will do when I'm all finished, and once I've got all the images that fit inside of this 8 by 10 area, is I'd go back down in here and I would shut off the background layer so that when I save it, all I'll have is all of the images on a transparent layer. I'll show you that here in a minute, but I'm going to go through all of these, clean them up, and then show you how to save it at the end. Okay? Back in a sec. So now I've gotten to the point where I have all of the images saved so that they're all in the upper left-hand corner of this document. It's probably hard to see them because they're all kind of like piled up on top of each other here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down through the list here and turn them all back on, because the next step, as you can see, they're all on now. They're all up in this left-hand corner, is to go around that upper left-hand corner like so and go to edit, or sorry, image, crop. What we wanted to do then was to bring all of those images down now that I've resized them all into the 8.5 or 8 by 10 size. Now I'm going to shut off the background image here. Probably even throw the background away because I can't imagine ever wanting to have this backed up by a white background on any of them. I'll probably give them a background of their own if I needed to do that. So I'm going to get rid of that completely. So I now have just all of the images themselves on a transparent background. Some of them I have marked, as you can see here, for future reference. There's one here that is the finished sketch, and down here I've noticed that I also have the preliminary sketch for it, and I've marked that right here as well so that I can line those two up and find them rather quickly. So then what you'll want to do is do File Save As, and you're going to save this to the desktop, and I'm going to save it inside of this folder here. This is the portfolio examples that I'm working from. Right now I'm going to be doing this as the resized portfolio images. And I'm going to save that as the slideshow. And it'll probably take a little bit here to save all of those. But when I'm all done, it will be in this folder off here to my left. I'm going to save it again. File, Save As. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. I'm going to put it into my other document here, Resizing Images, because that's the folder that I'm relying on right now in order to put this demonstration together for you. So make sure it's saved there. And as you can see, it's popped up here. Now here in a minute, I'm going to show you how to load all of these out of the Photoshop document as individual JPEGs, but more on that here in a few minutes. So now let's say that you've got all the images resized and they're all on transparent background and you're ready to output these as JPEGs to be used in your portfolio. And 8 by 10 is a pretty good size because when you bring it into the InDesign document, it doesn't take a whole lot to bring them down in size or up a little bit in size based on whatever it is that you want to do with them. It'll be much easier to deal with than the big 24 by 24 inch documents that you would have been stuck with at the beginning. So in order to output these, what you want to do is you want to go to File, and you're going to come down here to Export, and then you're going to go from there to Layers to Files. And now you're going to have a little dialog box appeared off to the side here, and it's going to ask you, okay, well, where do you want these images to go? So you can say Browse, and you're going to say I want to go to the desktop, and I'm going to want to put them into this resizing images for Photoshop, that file that I've been dealing with, where I'm going to put all of this stuff, and I'm going to say OK. Now you have to be really careful about this part right here, because you want to number these in such a way that you're not going to end up with this big long title in front of each image. Otherwise, it's going to get rather cumbersome. So you can start off by just saying, okay, well, I want 0 in front of it or something like that, or 0, 1. And it's going to put that in front of each one of the images. You may or may not want that. If that's the case, just delete that so you will have nothing there. You want to save your file type as a JPEG. You can save it as any type that you want. You could put them all out as Photoshop files if you thought that there was stuff that you still wanted to go back in and edit. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to be saving them as JPEGs to this file. The quality, I'm going to set it to probably about 8. I could make it a little bit better if I wanted to, but I think for the sake of this demonstration, 8's probably going to be fine, and I'm just going to go ahead and run that. Now you'll notice it's going to start looking really funny here, because what it's going to do is it's going to go through each and every one of these images here and save them one at a time out as a JPEG into that file. And we'll take a look at that here in a moment when it's done. I'm a little reluctant to move the other file over here on my left-hand screen, but I can see it chucking away and saving each one of them. And the nice thing about it is that it's giving them a number in front of them. So it's going to save them all with something that you can now reference. And we'll be taking a look at these again as I put them into that portfolio. Again, it's doing these one at a time, and you can see it's being saved each image on a transparent background. So there's nothing extraneous that's going to come into the portfolio with it. Getting pretty near the end. There we go. And it lets you know that it was successful. You say OK. And then we're going to go off to the side here, and we're going to take a look at the file. So you can see it started off with this image up here, which is 4 zeros, and then the next one is 001. 0002, 0003, and so forth. So it's saved all of them. There's my original slideshow that I set up, which was what we saved them from here. So now each one of these images will be able to be used in the portfolio. That'll give you an idea of how to resize your images in Photoshop, which will make them much more accessible and better for you to use in your InDesign document. So that's all for now with this one. I'm getting rather long on this recording here, almost 20 minutes. But this will give you a real good idea of how to resize your images for your portfolio. All for now. See you guys in the next video.